G'day. This video is a little less formal than the last one. Instead of a more direct reading of the work itself, you could think of this as an example of how I might begin to approach a particular theme or idea present in a work. Anyway, you'll see what I mean. I've got a few larger ideas I'm working on, but they're a little ways off. I'm not particularly interested in making a video a month for the algorithm or whatever. Things will be done when they're done. Also, spoilers for X-Driver, although there's not really that much to spoil, to be honest.
Part 1. The Soul.
X-Driver is a 6-episode OVA released in July 2000. In the world of X-Driver, AVs, or autonomous vehicles, are ubiquitous. The primary mode of transport are the many robo-taxis parked throughout the city. You simply provide your desired destination, or even have one recommended to you, and AI does the rest. It safely navigates to your destination through the use of onboard self-driving AI, GPS satellites, and sensors dotted around the vehicle and the city itself. Only, the technology is busted. AVs regularly go haywire and endanger the lives of passengers and pedestrians. Not even the manufacturers know what causes it. Naturally, the solution to this is to assemble a worldwide organisation of drivers, the titular X-Drivers, who drive traditional, high-performance vehicles. They perform coordinated manoeuvres together at high speed and use projectile weapons to safely disable any runaway AVs. In the case of the city featured in the show, the drivers in question are a ragtag bunch of high school students. There's Lisa Sakakino, driving a Subaru Impreza WRC 99, later a Lancia Stratos HF, Lorna Endo, driving a Lotus Europa Special, and lastly, Soichi Sugano, driving a Caterham Super 7 JPE. A group of drivers are on call in every region with AVs, each with their own 20th century vehicle, and supported by a team of mechanics and technical staff who track data from sensors around the city and the runaway AVs themselves. And that's sort of it. The show puts down those threads that it barely even began to pull at and moves on to more standard fare. The characters try to balance their high school lives with their careers, deal with some intergroup conflict, that sort of thing. The series ends with a confrontation between the protagonists and a group led by a former X-Driver. They save a bus full of school kids, and the leader of the bad guys rejoins the X-Drivers. Roll credits. Surely there must be more to this, right? A network of autonomous vehicles constantly breaking down and having to be saved by 3 kids in analog cars? Come on. You can do loads with that premise, even in the late 90s. Now one might say that it doesn't need to be about anything else. If it's just about teenage kids driving fast cars, it can just be about that, and it's fine. And I mean, yeah, sure. It's fine. But when I hear that premise, given the long history of automobile safety, and in particular, the more recent development and deployment of self-driving vehicles, it leaves me wanting something more substantial. So, I'm going to try and bring you up to speed on autonomous vehicles, and then we'll re-examine the premise with that in mind.
Part 2. The Dream.
A good place to start when examining autonomous vehicles is to look to the AV industry itself. Thankfully, we have the Coalition for Future Mobility, a US lobby group whose members include vehicle and transport companies, tech companies, and libertarian policy organisations. They've provided a handy summary of the many benefits that autonomous vehicles provide. So let's take a look. Greater road safety. Driver behaviour or driver error was identified as a factor in 94% of crashes, and autonomous vehicles can all but remove this through reduction in risky and dangerous behaviour. Saving money. Fewer crashes means less money lost to crashes and medical bills, and more affordable car insurance. More productivity. Introduction of autonomous vehicles means that the driver can perform other tasks while commuting, and the vehicle itself can perform other tasks while passengers are out of the vehicle. Reduced congestion. Inter-vehicle communication and automation of driving reduces ripple effects caused by inefficient or unsafe driving, also known as traffic waves. Environmental gains. Adoption of electric vehicles, ride-sharing, and optimization through automation results in less vehicles on the road, less time spent in traffic, less idling, and less unnecessary braking, all of which result in less energy usage. So, in broad strokes, autonomous vehicles means driving will be safer and more efficient. Sounds pretty good to me. But let's take a look at a few of these claims and see how they play out in reality.
Part 3. The Reality.
So, you think about it, does NHTSA have any power today to make people stop doing rolling stops? No, they don't. But now, with the software update, you can actually make thousands of people drive safer just with a software update overnight.
Wow, that's actually healthy. Fuck. Are we gonna have to cut that? It wouldn't have hit him. It definitely wouldn't have hit him.
In February 2022, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, the United States government body responsible for writing and enforcing vehicle safety standards, opened what they call a preliminary evaluation into an issue impacting approximately 400,000 Tesla vehicles. The description of that issue listed on the notice reads,
"Unexpected activation of braking system may cause rapid deceleration."
The NHTSA seemingly has it out for Tesla. In particular, their perceived avoidance of the standard recall process for issues that impact vehicle safety, instead opting to remedy them with software updates. For example, in 2019, Tesla pushed a software update that seemed to reduce the overall battery capacity of some of their vehicles. Publicly, they stated that this update would further protect the battery and improve battery longevity. Naturally, many viewed this as a response to a number of high-profile, spontaneous combustions, and the NHTSA opened an investigation. However, due to none of the reported events occurring in the United States and the lack of global events after May 2019, i.e. after the software update in question was deployed, the investigation was closed. More recently, however, Tesla seems to have corrected this apparent behaviour of dodging recalls, having submitted 10 of them to the NHTSA in the 5-month period spanning October 2021 to February 2022. It's no wonder Elon Musk called them the fun police. Given the habit the autonomous vehicle industry has developed of talking about how much safer and more efficient their products are, for a while they were incredibly reticent about sharing data that backs up those claims with researchers and regulators. On the occasion that data was made available, it was presented in such a way as to make it incomparable to other datasets by using vague or proprietary definitions for crashes and not adjusting for road types and demographics. This has been remedied to a certain extent with the introduction of NHTSA Standing General Order 2021-01, which requires all manufacturers of vehicles with automated driver assistance or self-driving capabilities of a certain standard to report crashes directly to the NHTSA. Prior to this, however, when researchers were able to adjust for some of these factors, the stated benefits of these products quickly begin to diminish. In a study by Noah Goodall, when looking at rear-end collisions, AVs are struck from behind at 4.8 times the rate of human drivers. This increases to 5 times when you look at specifically urban driving. In another study, again by Goodall, when the crash rate of vehicles using Tesla's autopilot feature is adjusted for road type, we see the crash rate increase by 61% as compared to the unadjusted data. This dramatically reduces the difference in crash rates when compared to a human driver using active safety features, such as automatic emergency braking and blind spot collision warnings. Goodall also suggests that this difference could be further explained by lower crash rates in general on freeways, which is where the autopilot feature is predominantly used. Traffic flow is another inefficiency that autonomous vehicles are purported to solve. Traffic waves, for example, are a real phenomenon, but the discussion and research around the impact that AVs have on it is somewhat clouded. Experiments that show AVs solving this problem seem to assume a perfect self-driving AI, which absolutely does not exist, and the simulations are largely free of any other distractions, hazards, or things that might cause an AV to come to a sudden stop. Further, these experiments almost always involve a small number of AVs in a scenario with mostly human drivers. The AVs work together to control the human drivers by intentionally slowing down and changing lanes to impede traffic, behaviour that might cause human drivers to apply the brakes, perhaps even suddenly and unexpectedly. I want to present a section from this article on Wired, which is focused on using machine learning to solve these traffic problems.
Bayan and his team use deep reinforcement learning to train autonomous vehicles to minimize traffic by maximizing their overall speed in a freeway-like environment. It works like this. Posit to a vehicular AI that its goal should be a sustained high rate of speed. Then task it with reaching that goal. "We never teach the algorithm how to do this," says Bayan. "It just learns how to do it on its own by trial and error."
For anyone not familiar with machine learning, here's a simplified explanation. The computer works very, very hard trying to make the cars go fast, based on the information and parameters it is given access to. It does this for months, over and over, all simultaneously. It gets little treats when it makes the cars go fast. It loses treats when the cars don't go fast. And through net positive treat accumulation, we assume it has figured out some way of making all the cars go as fast as possible. Ideally, that way doesn't involve doing clearly incorrect and bad things, like say, getting behind all the cars and pushing them along like a freight train, or darting rapidly between two lanes like a jerk. This becomes particularly concerning when the scope of information and parameters it has access to grows, as the relationships between the objective, the input data, and the result become increasingly complex. Mobile GPS navigation app Waze, for example, uses data from a variety of sources to provide turn-by-turn navigation for drivers. During periods of increased congestion, drivers are provided with alternate routes in real time, in some cases down narrow residential streets. As a result, this increases the risk to pedestrians, risk of traffic accidents, causes damage to roads not rated for this degree of traffic, and creates knock-on effects that negatively impact congestion on a larger scale. It's easy to imagine a similar scenario occurring with AVs, particularly ones whose goal is to not only optimize their own speed and travel time, but that of other drivers around them. This sort of behaviour is of great concern to AI safety researchers. One particular field of study, AI alignment, describes the relationship between the goals and actions of an agent and the intent and values of the people who created it. In the Waze example, one could say the objective as described to the system, decrease agent travel time by avoiding known congested routes, is misaligned with societal values that weren't accurately captured by the goal. Safety of pedestrians, existing citywide traffic management goals, and damage to city infrastructure. Given this, let's see what Alex has to say about his machine learning traffic flow solution.
You can see this guy is behaving kind of like a jerk, right? It's switching lanes to prevent people from passing. It learned to do it without any model. It's just artificial intelligence. Now this, I can't tell you what it's doing anymore. It sometimes will hold cars, sometimes it will let them go, but I can't even rationalize what it came up with. But you look at the numbers, it's actually more efficient. So where are we going with this?
In May 2021, YouTuber and self-described AV fan Joel Johnson took a now somewhat infamous ride in a robotaxi operated by Waymo, a subsidiary of Alphabet. These particular AVs do not have a human driver and operate in a limited capacity in a small number of cities in the United States. On this particular trip, the AV took an unnecessary detour off a main road and through a residential area. When attempting to rejoin the same main road it left, it was seemingly confused by some construction taking place in the closed lane it was trying to turn into, and stopped. The next few minutes involved the robotaxi attempting to resume its journey after stopping in the middle of a closed road, after the passenger contacts technical support, and after the Waymo roadside assistance team attempts to approach the vehicle to intervene. In April 2022, San Francisco police attempted to stop a Cruise robotaxi that was driving at night without its headlights. After the police approached the vehicle, it took off and parked on the other side of the intersection. At the time, Cruise's robotaxis were only allowed to operate from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., making headlights somewhat important for both other vehicles and pedestrians recognizing the vehicle, and in aiding the robotaxi's onboard sensors and computer vision algorithms. As of November 2022, they are now permitted to drive during the day. It's difficult to describe the behaviour of these AVs as anything but rogue or runaway. They're making decisions based on limited and potentially flawed inputs and producing nonsensical and dangerous outputs. At the time these events took place, nobody involved was able to rationalise or understand these actions. The NHTSA has another open investigation into Tesla and other manufacturers. They want to know why vehicles with autonomous functionality are crashing into emergency vehicles. In particular, emergency vehicles that are parked on the side of the road with flashing lights, flares, cones, and illuminated signage. As of June 2022, the NHTSA are investigating 16 such incidents involving Tesla specifically. They determined that on average, the autopilot feature disengaged less than 1 second before impact.
Part 4. The conclusion.
When these proposed solutions inevitably fail, individually or systematically, who is at fault? Corporations have and will continuously work to shirk and shift responsibility, blaming everyone else and everything but the systems they've built. Or, in the rare occasions where they do blame their product, they ask for absolution.
And a lot of times people are just like too careful too. I mean, it's like, I think it's more useful to like make things happen and then like apologize later than it is to make sure that you dot all your I's now and then like just not get stuff done.
We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. It was my mistake, and I'm sorry. It's going to take some time to work through all the changes we need to make, but I'm committed to getting this right.
But they are responsible, and we need to hold them responsible. It's easy to anthropomorphize the machines these tech companies create, but the objectives they're programmed to have and the parameters they operate under are assigned to them by people. On the pursuit of those objectives, Professor and artificial intelligence researcher Stuart Russell writes,
"These fixed objectives will be ones that we ourselves have inserted. There is no need to posit some form of emergent consciousness that spontaneously generates its own objectives. All that is needed to assure catastrophe is a highly competent machine combined with humans who have an imperfect ability to specify human preferences completely and correctly."
So, now that you've got somewhat of a background on this stuff, what about X-Driver? How might one approach the work from this perspective? I mentioned at the start of the video that I feel it doesn't really engage with any of these elements of its setting in a meaningful way. But maybe there's something there. If a mindless charge towards a tech utopian vision of the future is considered progress, how is the end result of that progress represented in X-Driver? It's a 12-year-old driving a Caterham Super 7 at high speed around the city, trying to subdue rogue self-driving cars. That's the solution. The show doesn't say they are trying to fix things, but they are the fix. The solution isn't, we need to stop the cars from going rogue, but we need to stop the cars when they go rogue. A subtle change, but there's an implied inevitability and finality there that seems oddly familiar. Crashes will happen, and vehicles will go rogue. But that's good. They can analyze these tragic mistakes and develop a better, safer product. Technological progression by way of making omelets. Move fast and break eggs. You can't make a new product without breaking a few things. The issue is, those things tend to be us and the systems we rely on, and they usually stay broken. But there's hope in there as well, I think. At the end of the day, when algorithms and automation implemented by profit-driven corporations are seen as this panacea for society, it's people that are at the heart of it. In the case of X-Driver, there is no AI or algorithm that saves people from a speeding out of control AV. It's people. We are driving this change, whether it's through consumer adoption, legislation, or actively working on these products. This means that, at least to a certain extent, we can also hit the brakes and examine the outcomes of the deployment of this technology at the speed and scale we see today. So perhaps there is something there at the heart of X-Driver, a naive and likely even unintentional subtext that has festered and grown with age. A bitter layer of cynicism that makes the failure of this technology the core of the entire premise. Everything else is painted over it, but there's just enough of that cynicism showing for the viewer to begin to peel away the facade.
It got by! I can't believe they have runaway cars here. You would think in the USA they would have at least taken the time to debug their system, right?
They can't help it. The USA is a big country.
And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy engaging with media in this way. It pushes me to not only examine a work in isolation, but as part of the world we live in. It drives me to dig into the reality of elements present in a work, then apply that knowledge to my reading. And while it's important to remember the context in which a work was created, our values and circumstances change with time, culture, and lived experience. Indeed, there are some perspectives, important ones, from which I am unable to view a work. And as such, I have to be aware that my reading may be lacking. Ultimately, analysing a work from these new perspectives doesn't restrict it, nor does it necessarily preclude the existence or validity of any other perspectives. They compound and inform one another to create a fuller, richer understanding and appreciation of media for a wider audience. And maybe, from your perspective, it's just about kids driving cool cars. And that's fine. The show's kind of mid though. Okay, special thanks to guest voices for this video, in order of appearance. Ultra Robo MD, Demenza's Gate, and High Functioning Medium. You can check out their YouTube channels, linked in the description below. Go like the video and all that stuff you're supposed to do. Or better yet, don't do that. I don't really make these videos to go viral or get clicks or whatever. I don't plan on clicking the big monetization button or taking VPN or mobile game sponsors. I'm not interested in making a career out of chasing engagement. I make these videos because I enjoy doing them. It's a hobby. Anyway, get into the comments and discuss the incredibly popular and critically acclaimed series that is X Driver. But please, just be normal.